right, next let's look under the hood, see what's under the hood, and talk about the engine, talk about some of the features and specs and the performance numbers. It's pretty impressive, I'll tell you what. All right, let's get a little bit better view of the engine while I talk about it. It's a supercharger. You can see back in there, the supercharger runs at 11 psi. It runs at twice the engine speed, so it's capable of 14,600 RPM. The massive air box, which is what's kind of in the way here, seeing the engine, is almost 33 liters of air per minute. And it filters 4 times as much dirt and debris as the Ford Raptor. So there you go. That is why you would want to buy one of these over the Raptor. And it does just use a cast iron block. I guess why mess with something that is reliable? Forged steel crankshaft, induction hardened bearings, so it's a well-built engine. I'd feel totally comfortable with one of these. Dodge has been running that Hemi, or this version, or this generation of the Hemi now for several years, and I haven't really heard any problems with them. So in fact, just kind of like any Dodge truck, it's never the engine that you have to worry about. Sorry, Jim. That's my neighbor who's a big Mopar guy. He drives nothing but Mopars. And I think he's actually quite jealous that I get to drive this today. Let's go for a drive out on the highway and just see how it does. I'm going to try out a couple different modes, do some quick acceleration. Let's see how quickly it accelerates. And again, this is a closed circuit race course, and there aren't any speed limits, so I'm not breaking any laws or anything like that. All right, just gonna do some highway driving now. See how the power does on this thing. I'm just in regular mode, or I shouldn't say regular, but automatic, where it just does the choosing for me. So I'm going to slow down to about 60 miles an hour here. Alright, let's see how quick she gets up to about 80. Gets there right now. I didn't mind it at all. Let's do 60 to 80 again. Or 87, either way. I've switched it into sport mode, which it told me the traction control was now turned off. I'm going to try to get it down to 55 and go. Very nice. Honda Ridgeline. Alright, so word on the gas mileage here. I was down to about 3/4 of a tank, so I went ahead and filled it up as a thank you to the owner for letting me drive this. But I've been driving around in sport mode and doing some quick accelerations, and I'm still getting 10.6. So this truck, from what I can tell, it's going to get between 10.5 and 11 miles a gallon no matter what you're doing. Maybe drop down to 10. I suppose that might change when you're towing. But just expect that. But honestly, I think that's really good. Again, if you're in double digits on something with 702 horsepower and weighs like 6,500 pounds, that's great. That wouldn't bother me at all. So it was, like I said, it was down to about 3/4 of a tank. It took about 12 gallons to fill it up. I'd have to look up and see what the tank size is, but that's saying it's got, that's really 1/4 of a tank. It's got somewhere around a 40-gallon tank of fuel. So anyway, pretty happy with that, and I haven't been easy on it, so the idea of it getting 10.6 is pretty dang good. All right, just filled up at the gas station because I used a little bit of gas, and Gonna head back and return the truck to its owner, and gonna give you my final thoughts on, first, the performance of the truck, and then second, just the truck overall, which I am very happy with in both categories. But I wanted to put it in perspective compared to other trucks I've driven. So let's talk about the power. The power in terms of a gas truck is the fastest, most powerful truck I've ever driven. I mean, 702 horsepower. Can't argue with that. Nothing comes close in terms of gas trucks. Now, to keep that in perspective, though, it's a 650 foot-pound of torque truck, and it's a 6,500 pound truck. So again, this is the quickest and fastest gasoline truck I've ever driven. But if you put it in the perspective of all full-size trucks, if you've driven any of the new diesels, they're around 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. Now, depending on the truck, it's awfully governed, and you don't really have full use of that 1,000 foot-pounds of torque. You really got to get into deleting a diesel truck to really make use of all the power available on a new diesel. But if you are into those types of trucks, this truck isn't going to keep up with one of those, in my opinion. A deleted diesel truck. Now, it's a lot more fun to drive than just a stock diesel truck. At least, I've driven the L5P Duramax. I'll say this is a lot more quicker feeling. But if you would ever open one of those up, get rid of all the stuff holding you back on the new diesels, i.e. delete one, this truck's not going to seem so impressive in terms of power. So I just wanted to offer that perspective on strictly performance, because you look at that 702 horsepower and you're like, wow. If you consider the weight of the truck and all that, the torque, there are more powerful trucks out there in terms of diesels, and particularly deleted diesels would outrun these trucks. But you got a gas truck here, 700 horse, averaging between 10 and 11 miles a gallon without trying real hard. So that's pretty impressive. So that's performance of the truck. Let's talk about just overall. Overall is where I think this truck really shines. The 8 different ride modes or performance modes that control not only the transmission, but the amount of torque front to rear, the suspension, whether it stiffens up or softens, all of those things. The integrated trailering stuff, it's got good mirrors, good visibility. It's just well mannered for such a truck with impressive specs. You don't give up anything by going with the TRX, in my opinion. It's all bonus. So with that in mind, in terms of really any truck, gas or diesel, I think it's my favorite truck I've ever driven. It really is. Now, if they would offer a diesel version of one of these, that might be tempting. As it is with the package of the long suspension travel, the really good transmission, the different modes, as a package, this is a really great truck. Now, I know the base price is $70,000 on these. I also know that most people probably pay more than $70,000, so you got to keep that in mind. So maybe it's not surprising that this is the best truck I've ever driven, because it's the most expensive truck I've ever driven. But what that means for me is I'm going to keep my eye on these trucks, and maybe in 3-4 years, when they're $50,000 used and have 50 or 60,000 miles on them, I think I'd be a buyer then. I'm not going to pay 80 or 90,000 for one myself. But hell, you can spend that much on a diesel truck right now. In fact, all trucks right now are really crazy here post-COVID. I'm not sure why. I know there's a shortage on them. A chip shortage is causing delays on delivery from the big 3 at least. So would I buy a TRX? Hell yes. I'm just going to wait a couple, 3 years until they're 30% cheaper. That's all I would say. I love it. It's just a really great, comfortable truck, and the performance is there when you need it, but you're not constantly reminded that you're driving something that's a hot rod. But again, when you want it, it's there. So that's my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I totally recommend one of these trucks. Good job, FCA. All right, see you guys later. All right, final thoughts on the Ram TRX 2021 model. It is so choice. If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.